Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you all, metaphorically speaking. I'm still Nishlas, joined by Nightmare.
I'm still Nightmare.
You are still Nightmare. It's good to know. You didn't change your name over the break. That's great. And of course, we are after the game where LDLC come back in a game where it was a little bit rough early on against Unicorns of Love CXC Edition, but it was a victory nonetheless. I believe we'll shortly be joined by the jungler of LDLC as well to talk through that game. Of course, Yike going to come and join us and share his thoughts. And there he is.
Hello.
Congratulations on the win. Well done on going 3-0. How are you feeling after, currently going undefeated?
It feels really good. I guess it was what people expected of us. So I feel good that we can win the games that people expect us to win.
Okay, so kind of diving a little bit deeper into this game in particular, though, in terms of what's expected. Yes, you were coming in as favorites. One thing which I expected was for your team to be quite safe in mid lane in the early game, because actually yourself and DOS are very good at protecting Iker in that mid lane. What were your thought processes to kind of get back ahead in that mid lane, rather, when it started falling behind? How did that go through your minds?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't usually happen that they can gank mid this much and punish our mid, but I guess we just calm Leica down, or not to calm him down, but we all stayed calm, and we just tried to make a plan for how to come back into the game, and it kind of worked out.
Just outplay mid laner. That's a great way to get back ahead.
Yeah, I mean, even if I die mid as well, it's fine. He wins.
Fantastic. Yeah. Great to hear on that one. And I want to call back to something you said a little earlier as well. You said, obviously, a lot of expectations on you as the LFL number 1 seed, as the defending champions, at least in terms of region, of course. What are your expectations, I guess, for this tournament? Are you expecting to win it? Are you expecting to go undefeated? How high are your expectations as a player and as a team?
So I think everyone in our team thinks we can win the Masters. I think so as well. I hope so. That's the goal for everyone in the team. And I think with the way we're playing right now, it's for sure possible. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to playing more games.
Okay, so I suppose the last thing is there another team that you are looking at in terms across the rest? It's a bit of a generic question, but are there other teams which you're expecting to really match up against later into the tournament?
I guess the teams outside of LFL, then it's probably Fnatic and X7. I think they both have really good junglers, so it's going to be fun to play versus them, and it's going to be nice to see how the games will be.
I love the fact you went, they're just the really good junglers. I want to play against the really good junglers.
I can agree with that.
It's great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Yike. Best of luck
thank you very much.
with the rest of the tournament. Congratulations on the undefeated run so far, and hopefully we'll see you later on in the tournament as well.
Yeah. All right.
See you around.
And with that, we've got ourselves some highlights of that game, because it was actually for a long time a pretty close run thing.
It was. I wouldn't say it was, they got us in the first half. It's like they got us in the first 10 minutes or so. And after that point, again, we saw that even though mid lane was going so well for Ruby and for Lurox and Dream Race roaming up there, it really was the Iker show after that point in terms of clawing that advantage back and coming back into the game. And then after that point, LDLC were really quite ruthless with it. Now, this fight got a little close, and you could definitely see the fact that there were still some hands-on keyboards from the sides of the Unicorns. But I look at this, and I think that, LDLC, their team fight instincts are in the right place, and they just know how to read the game. They came into this with elixirs coming into it, as we spotted during the middle of it. And LDLC, I like the way that they aggressively closed out the game and understood their place within it.
Absolutely. And when the early game had been actually pretty dominant in a lot of ways, it felt like, at least on paper, it was still only $1,000 gold lead, and then suddenly out of nowhere you've got 4 turrets going down in a matter of moments. You've got plays where objectives going incredibly towards LDLC's favor, which swung the gold right back in their favor. And then you see this final team fight with the mother of all Infernum ultimates, where Xkick gets absolutely everything, and from there it's lights out and game over.
Yeah, we were used to seeing a couple of big Infernum ultimates in the release of FLOS. It takes a lot more effort and a few more items to really get that at this point, but that one was looking like some prime vintage 200 years and all the rest of it. But again, Goldgraph shows a story. It might seem a little bit different from what you were seeing on the screens in terms of the kills, because as you're saying, actually the gold didn't get that ever in favor of the Unicorns, but they still made LDLC have to work themselves back into that game.
And they held on long enough, and then the play started happening in the mid-games around the 15-minute marks, and they came up with the win. But never mind that. We've got to look onto another LFL representative, of course, because Karmine Corp are coming up in our next game, and they're going up against the Greek representatives in Team Phantasma. But here is the KC lineup, and I think you all may recognize some of those names.
Few, because these are some players which have gotten themselves some real fanfare around them. This team, this org, back-to-back Amazon European Masters champions, and they are such a feared team. On the other side, though, GLL coming in as the underdog, but there is a certain, fervor to being able to play against the big dogs and say, you know what, let's have a crack at them, let's see if we can take them down. And this GLL team, I want to see them come out of the gates really flying. We said that Karmine Corp's early game is kind of a place where they can start to be preyed on. I want to see Phantasma come in confident, come in aggressive, and see if they can really put a home and a really historic victory here.
Would be exactly that. The underdog story, very much alive for Team Phantasma. Can they play aggressively in the early game, as Nightmare was asking? Well, we've got a champion select to figure out whether they can get a team comp. We're allowed to do them at the very least. Of course, Karmine Corp over on the blue side, and this is a team that did very well in the play-ins, but bombed out a little in the playoffs after doing pretty well in the regular season after an ugly early start to it. And there's been some inconsistency with this team, at least over the grand scale of the year and the season so far.
No, and as you're saying, so actually, to make my hot take, which is maybe not as hot after you see some of these games, if Karmine Corp play the way they did in play-ins, they are going to really struggle in this group. We saw what happened against X7. They got outplayed early. We've talked a fair amount about that. These are the kind of games where maybe against a team which has less tournament expectations, they can look to maybe iterate and see if they can start solving some of them. But again, there are no easy teams to beat in European Masters group stage. This is not a point where you can really take free wins, and Phantasma will look to be that thorn in the side of the big teams in this group.
Will the thorn be poison enough to bring down a giant like Karmine Corp, the defending champions? Again, I remind you all, you can see here with some of the Bamface just taking a little bit more time, trying to get rid of some of these big playmaking options right now. The Renata, the Camille, Trundle as well can really counter what 113 wants to do with the champion pool as well. On the other side, Zeri, we've seen what Reckless can do with that. Anyone who watched the play and saw some absolutely incredible stuff. I had the pleasure of casting Reckless popping off on the champion. They get rid of two of the early playmaking junglers as well. And we're left up with likely be something like a Jinx first pick.
Can definitely go up there. Ahri's on the table too. Very hard to counter in its own way. But actually, speaking of hard to counter, Xayah has the Misfortune as an answer. See if Vendetta wants to pick that up, because you look at a couple of those champions and think, okay, well, you can outrange the Xayah, you can zone her out, and there are lots of ways you can do that. However, it could just be a bit of a handshake on terms of scaling, saying we're just going to go towards the high DPS carries and those consistent DPS numbers.
Still debating it. AD carry certainly up and available, but something like a Jarvan as well, which you can just dive in on. And yes, you go up in the air, but you're not necessarily getting out of the box until you flash.
Exactly. And also it means that if you are picking yourself another backline AD carry, they can't pick the Jarvan against that. So you've got two backline AD carries. One of them has to deal with the Jarvan. One of them doesn't. That seems like a bit of a...
bit unfair.
Bit unfair.
Who allowed that to happen? But of course, they're going to get that one, and Nicolex going to be looking to make sure the AD carries and the backline suffer with the Jarvan, which has, again, been one of those picks that's semi-high in priority, kind of around there with a lot of the other junglers, just below the kind of absolute premier first pick options, etc., etc. We're still going to see a LeBlanc come through. That's a lot of bursts, a lot of roam, it's a lot of ways to blow up single targets, with big AoEs as well.
It is also, again, LeBlanc is not an easy champion to particularly answer in that mid lane. Is a bit of a skill matchup. It's also a takeaway from Seiken, who loves to play the TF, loves to play the Ryze, loves to play the LeBlanc. Going to stop Seiken from getting out of lane and impacting the rest of the map early. Though, this is kind of the opt-in to saying, look, this matchup is still kind of skill-based. You both want to skirmish. You both want to have that real magic damage, mid-jungle 2v2 threat.
Absolutely, and it's two LFL games, two Xin Zhao Ahri combos for the French reps in a row. The Aphelios is now locked in for Team Phantasma after debating it, mulling it over earlier on in the draft, and now we're left with what looks to be top laners and supports left to counterpick once again here.
And support counterpick becomes quite important. I actually think one of the ways, again, you can start really hammering on some of Karmine Corp's weaknesses is actually pick a counterpick support. Make sure you can hold Hantera in lane, or make sure that he's not as free to roam about the map. We saw that Pyke game against X7, and he was not having the best impact because actually it was X7 picking, I believe it was the Rakan into. No, it was, no, sorry, forgive me, that was actually not a counter pick, but either way, seeing what happens with Hantera when he's not necessarily in a favored matchup, it affects the way that Karmine Corp play around jungle support, which is a really key part of how you play the map.
Can Hantera get out on the map and make things happen, or is he kind of on vision? Is he kind of spotted out? Often a question for Karmine Corp, especially if you're looking to take them down. The focus right now from Phantasma has been to try and get rid of at least one of those big engaged support options. I wonder whether something like a Nautilus might still be an option here as well. Whereas Karmine Corp is saying, well, can we get rid of some of these obnoxious tanks available to someone like Bako so we can pick something for Cabochard, who is up there as one of the best ERL players out there.
Very much so. And now you are looking again at choice lane partners for something like developers think, okay, well, yes, you can have maybe something like a Lulu, maybe something like that. Nautilus, seen them quite a lot. But either way, I think you are probably, I would personally say counter pick support. I think that affects how Karmine Corp play out the early game enough, but that has to put a lot of pressure on Bako to perform well. Now, Bako was a big carry player in the GLL. He was kind of the best carry top laner that GLL had to offer.
That's the Jax.
Actually, this split has gone more towards weak side. And again, you see that Jax, that was one of his pocket picks at that point. Now, interested to see whether Bako can actually pick something blind at this point. Vendetta, of course, hovering their namesake. And of course, actually speaking of Bako, of course, the coach of Phantasma is Vasilis the Rock, used to be a caster, has talked to us a little bit about that team. And
shout out.
We'll be interested to see what his take is, of course, on this top lane side. Who are you going to blind pick for? Someone's going to take the short end of the stick here.
Oh, the short end of the stick goes towards Sanity, who's going to have to lock in the Rakan blind. And of course, Reckless, in turn, hovering the Vayne. There would be...
He's had a few highlight reels of that.
I mean, of course, it could still be Cabochard, I suppose, if we really want to pick Vayne here, run Vayne top, but I doubt that unless there's some real shenanigans going on. It would be shenanigans.
More curse words spoken on this podcast. At least for today.
At least until today. They bring me on and this is what happens. Our powers combined are too much, even for the broadcast. Of course, we'll lock in the Graves. A lot of shove, can play kind of by themselves in 1vx scenarios. I'm feeling okay with that one, I feel.
Now, Graves, of course, probably going more towards that Eclipse lethality build nowadays. The crit build was nerfed last season, at the very end of last season after Worlds. Then we had the whole break of nerfs recently too, so it is likely going towards a little bit more burst, which can follow over the top of a lot of your pick attempts. And when you have something like Nautilus to pin someone in place, that Graves ultimate coming through gets very, very dangerous. Now the question is, of course, Phantasma. You know this Graves is going to be hyper pushing, going to be a side lane threat, and wants to be adding over the top of your damage combo. How do you deal with that? You're not really going to beat them in terms of lane push. It's going to be the Malphite, which says, look, we're never going to get shove in, but against double AD jungle top, we can eventually just get to Warden's Mail, get to Ninja Tub, played a Steel Caps. That name's always
I was going to call you out on that because I'm an arsehole like that, but there you go.
That's the one. But either way, Bako now is in a point where you are eventually just going to get to a point where if you are not zoned out of XP and gold early, Graves gets very little value.
Indeed, it does, but of course we still have shove, right? Like that's the idea. And potentially there's a world here where you go towards the lethality. Yes, you're not going to have any damage versus Malphite, but at least you come to team fights.
You said lethality Malphite, and I was very, very questioning that.
Lethality Graves, in case I misspoke.
No. That's what I was saying, right? The other two builds of the Graves kind of nerfed. Lethality Graves is the odd one out.
Yeah, and that at least then adds that burst. You can add that with Azai. You come into a team fight and you just pop the target. That will be the idea of Karmine Corp. On the other side, though, Team Phantasma have got their own ways to make team fights happen. They're not shy of engage.
Now, and the thing is, if you overlap all of your engage into Azai, you've now dove very heavily into Feathers. That's going to work out very poorly for you. However, you get to those first team fights, blow the ultimate with Rakan looking for one side of it, or the Jarvan looking for one way to kind of get on top of that champion. Then everyone else is in. I think for me, this is going to be about how Phantasma approach their engages and make sure that they're not overlapping everything, because you still need to get to that Xayah. You still don't outrange, but you need to get on top of them with your engage.
Do you have the coordination to pull off a layered engage against players like Reckless and Karmine Corp as a whole? This team that has so many expectations, so many fans, so much history, both as an organization now within the ERLs, and of course, the players themselves. Hell, I remember Cabochard playing for Ninjas in Pajamas in the EU Challenger scene back in, I want to say 2015, with Alex Ich in the mid lane. Like, some of these players have been around and about for a long time, and Reckless, I mean, this guy is one of the EU greats, right? And you're now trying to pull off a comp that needs to blow up that ultimate from the Xayah, then get on top, then blow them up, and you need to see whether the coordination and the hands are there to be able to do that from Team Phantasma.
And now we've given some expectations, right? Because a lot of this is going to come down to what's going to happen with the Xayah. On the other side, though, you look at what Karmine Corp can do. They are fairly happy to sit in terms of parking that Xayah in one lane, getting to wave clear, and just playing defensively around that, and then playing more aggressively around the Xin Zhao visiting Ahri side of the map, or maybe the Graves or something at that point too, because they have, as we said, in terms of the last game, some ability to play around those sidelines. Because that last game we saw the Gnar taking over at that point, and that became very difficult for the other team, which did maybe want to play a bit more groups to deal with that. The question is now, can Phantasma force the groups and by solidifying the sidelines so that never comes about?
Late little invade there from Karmine Corp to get a ward down onto the red buff, but he was spotted out by another ward from Team Phantasma. These early jungle warding mind games, 2 games in a row.
Next level. They know, but we know that you know. So we'll see what happens with that, as this is going to happen. Bako's going to just go in and use themselves as a battle ward themselves. However, Graves looking to intercept them in the river. The trade heavier with the Malphite early on.
Well, where the warding stone has been removed, but I don't think cosplaying it as the Malphite is the way forwards. Warding rock, I suppose, considering it's Malphite, it's the same kind of deal. If there's a difference between rock and stone, I don't remember it right now. Someone who's a geologist out there might have to defend it. It's Nicolex.
It's not on the red buff. He's not been spotted here. Could actually be going for... Well, I mean, it's because you don't have the red buff, you're not going to have as much level 1 pressure. Looking for the buff to buff, potentially taking away something from 113. And something which, again, we said that we know the coach of Phantasma, and they were saying before this game to us, actually, there are 2 ways that Phantasma could look to play out this game. Either cover the dives and the aggressive plays which Karmine Corp are looking to do, or just meet them face up in aggression themselves. Having the job and pathing like this gives them some way to, again, have some more aggressive options by being unpredictable. They've not been seen on Vision yet. They're taking away camps. Nicolex is slightly off the radar now from Karmine Corp. If you want to match Vision, as Vasilis was potentially talking about, that's the way you do it.
Because the red buff hasn't gone down, 113 knows something is afoot and will return the favor. He's now invading in onto the red buff, knowing that it's not gone down. He got a full clear on his side, so the question is whether he'll stick around for more in the side of Team Phantasma's jungle or not.
But this does mean that Bako is once again on weak side, a role which he's found himself in more this split than he has done in previous ones. You know, as the Jax ban was against him. Very much played a lot of his own carry champions, but he's picking up waves. He's not getting dove. He's making sure that he's still kind of, again, getting to that point where he can outlast the Graves on that side. Then when you pick up a Warden's Mail, when you pick up those armor boots, and all the rest of it. But it is very much top side losing resources for Phantasma.
Indeed. Whether or not that comes back to bite them will be another matter, of course. Malphite pretty good at being a low economy top laner. That R button is pretty damn useful, whatever it may come as a Malphite player, of course. You've got to make sure you hit the R, but otherwise you're pretty happy as long as you can get to press it, however much gold you manage to get in lane, etc. But we're going to look for mid lane play instead.
Off Vision, not going to be seen here. And you know that you want to be hanging topside of Sake, and you know that.
Charm.
But now the Charm can't block out an EQ. We'll see what happens, actually, if Nicolex wanted to gank before that was back up. But looks like Nicolex is going to be covering the dive top instead, because that is burgeoning currently.
Rashad going to come out and try and just proxy this one, prevent the easy reset from Bako. He's taken down to about 15% HP. Saken up here as well. Nicolex around 3. Flash. Lands the wind, become lightning. Flash for the auto will secure the kill for Cabbage. And now Nicolex in that 1v3 will at least get one back. And now what can Pepe do is he will go right back into the waiting arms of Saken. The boss out for the screen is Nicolex, and 113 continue to duel out of the tower. Flash away. 113, remember, already burned the flash and now takes another tower shot. Maybe we'll think about another flag and drag. Right now it's a 2-for-1 because, of course, Saken secured the mid laner as well.
So looking to cover those dives, it's not been fully covered. You still end up losing your Malphite outside of that turret, loses a lot of that wave, and though Graves dies, Malphite has lost more resources for this. And that's not to even say the fact that he traded down in kills on the side of Phantasma as well. Karmine Corp very obviously playing towards that top side, but we were talking about them needing to address their own issues in the early game. So far, this is a good start.
Indeed it is, and you can see Pepe tries to get in here, realizes he's in trouble, goes back in. Saken's just there waiting. Not much you can do at that point.
Well, it's a heavy trade from the Ahri, and then has to pop back because it's, hang on, wait. Xin Zhao has really high damage.
No,
Bako's going to figure it out again.
Bako again about to die, and he's going to be walking back to lane.
And though Bako has definitely leveled up as a weak side player, throughout this split, absolutely not weak, coming in as the first from this GLR, but coming in as a player that's had to change their style. They've had to do a lot of learning with that suit, and you can see not really on the same rhythm of the game now, and is going to have to really be behind the curve at this point to find value later in the game.
throwback the pre-show as well, where we had some Karmine Core stats, some before and after, where in the before we saw the play-ins where they were absolutely dominating early game and going on from there, and then kind of the after where they got a bit rolled by Karmine Core in the early game. We said, well, maybe there's a weakness there. Right now, Karmine Core absolutely stomping this early game up about 2,000 gold, 5.5 minutes in. But TP might be looking to punish this one. Phantasma trying to get on 1-1-3. The flashing ain't going to get this one. Surely the knockup is there for the turnaround. The smite onto the Raptors, making a 1-for-1 now. Seiken, so high HP, he could just run down the rest of Phantasma. Nicolex, the next to fall. Surely it will be a 3-for-1 in favor of Karmine Core.
And they try and go for the aggressive play. They understand that this is a one-way trip. 1-1-3 uses that Audacious Charge to get right out to those Raptors, gets out of the initial engage, and when the first kill doesn't go down easily, the Smite even buying more HP, then Phantasma are always going to be on the losing end of this. In Hantera, even on the Nautilus, getting to the point where he's landing a lot of AoE for support. Remember, this is all base damages. You don't have a lot of big items with Nautilus doing actually quite a significant amount. Not actually that much, which Phantasma can do in terms of the increased the DPS check over time. You've got a first strike job and not even that lethal tempo. Karmine Core, they win the DPS check and roll out with a couple of kills.
And you can see the flash distort in from the LeBlancas. Never mind talking about that previous play, because top side, Seiken ulting and try and get a hold of Vako, who doesn't have the ultimate. Won't be able to secure the kill, but he'll be back out of lane. Third time so far. We've seen him die twice. Now he's going to have to reset again. 1-1-3's on the bot side, so making plays on both sides of the map at the same damn time.
And, with the hook landing, looking a bit dangerous.
So little to do right now. Sanity gets out with a sliver of HP. Gets away with it just about.
Yeah, no ignite for this particular engagement. I mean, Sanity's going to get out with their life, but Phantasma are yet to find themselves a real win in this game so far. It's only 7.5 minutes in. They're down a massive amount of gold. We talked about how good Karmine Core were in their play-in stage, playing against those play-in teams. They were getting huge gold leads, but they couldn't find that in their first group stage match. But in this one, looks like a bit more of a return to that first stage of that tournament. And they are very comfortably in the lead. You're really starting to wonder what Phantasma can do to get themselves back into a game at this point. They don't even have their ultimates to play around. Vako doesn't have his on the top side.
And what a glove from 1-1-3. This is a player that faced some criticism, had a rough time, particularly in the LFL playoffs. Didn't make as much of an impact as he would have liked. And then to come in with a game like this after kind of been manhandled a little bit yesterday by Haru, of course, world champion. There's not a huge amount to say, like, oh, that's a fantastic player. It happens occasionally. And now with the charm landing of mid lane as well, it's good to see this young player from Karmine Core coming out and doing this well in the early game alongside Seiken, at least early on, but maybe gone a little bit too deep. The moment I praise him, he's in a 1v2. Maybe not a 1v3 if Nicolex comes over, but Karmine Core now coming in force. Well, flash over the wall from Nicolex. Could look for more. Misses out, though. There's the Cataclysm. But there's still a Crescent Guard up, and on the other side, so much damage coming through. It's a 1 for none right now. They'll charm up Pepe on the other. He dies as well. 2 for none Karmine Core, plus the Herald.
And Karmine Core, they understand they're in the lead. They can take the fights that they want as long as they're not too egregious. And this one is in that list of ones they're very happy to put to bed. And you're sat here now, even more in the lead. You got themselves a Herald to make another big power play. You don't even have all of the plates down on the map at this point. And though Jinzhou has been nerfed a fair amount, he doesn't really care for it at this point. Still got himself that early game power spike, and that ultimate does so much damage. Mer's not able to dive in and do the damage that needs to happen. And while all this is happening, right, pulling out Pepe caught out yet again by Seiken, getting the better end of this matchup. It's the Ori versus LeBlanc.
Does just amazing
Hey Sam,
stuff.
that's 8 stacks and Dark Seal there.
Okay,
Look, I'm actually interested in. Can I interest you in a library pass to the library of Magi's?
but look, I am all for encouraging people to read, and I am down with that. But I'm aware that, generally speaking, we are here to commentate, not to be literary salesmen. And I say that as someone with an English degree, so I feel like I may have at least some grounding to
either way, I mean,
complain.
At this point, Karmine Core is snowballing so hard.
Oh, my
it doesn't
days.
actually matter what they're spending their gold on. Almost at this point, they're winning in every single lane. Up in CS in every lane, and it felt like Phantasma. They went for this early gambit. They tried to find themselves a way to play around top side to break the momentum of what Karmine Core were doing towards their Malphite. It's not worked. Now Karmine Core, they have the run of the map and where they want to play around.
Reminder that before yesterday, Karmine Core were up 57 odd CS in the early game. They're certainly looking to replicate that here early. They are up about 5 1,000 gold right now. They'll summon down the Herald. There's still plates to come. That'll all go into Reckless, waiting and willing hands, and they're going to get first turret off it as well. And that gold lead explodes even further. It is 10 minutes in, and it's already an absolute mountain for Team Phantasma to climb.
And actually, with Flash and Ultimate on the Nautilus, there's even a chance of a dive here at this point. Hantera going to be tanking up the tower for reasons. But either way, the Herald's going to charge in, and Karmine Corp look like they're happy to fight.
Certainly think about it, it's a decent route onto 113. Pepe coming over, can't quite get enough damage. They get the ignite. There's the heal from Reckless, who's also jumped out pretty low. And Nicolex thinking about going in, but that's a well-timed Feather Storm. Don't even need to pull the feathers back, and they get another kill.
We were talking about coordination for this team of Phantasma, wanting to really get onto the targets they want to do together, but not overlap. It is just Nicolex at that point. Goes far too deep, gets the Xayah ultimate, but that's literally just it, and it's to the cost of their life. Now, that's another kill against this deficit again, which they really need to start breaking down at some point. It is looking so unlikely for them to come back, and you're really waiting for Karmine Corp to overstep into multiple ultimates. That's the only way I can see Phantasma winning fights at this point.
You've got to find the mother of all unstoppable forces into Cataclysm, into quickness, where Vendetta has 2 items and can hit fantastic, massive ultimate and get Chakram swirling everywhere. Like, you could hear the list of things that need to happen, plus Karmine Corp misplaying, plus so many other things, a little bit of luck, a miracle, some divine intervention, etc., as Vendetta is about to
in purgatory.
Yeah, might be looking to put his own Vendetta against Karmine Corp. He's going to get hooked up and run down. Reckless gets his first kill of the game. Now he's 1-0-1 on the top side. Cabochard is getting engaged off of flashes. Unstoppable Force, Nicolex is there. Might finally be a kill there first in what feels like 10 minutes. A Cataclysm required to shut down the Graves.
Oh, 3 members, 3 ultimates for 1 kill. It is something. Again, it is trading so far into inefficient numbers that you really can't stop and be happy about it as Phantasma still. And Karmine Corp again, we were wondering if they were going to turn up in the early game. They absolutely have done at that point. And this is the team again, to zoom it back out, coming from the LFL, one of these regions, which is so feared, back-to-back champions, have all of this stuff, and this is a good game for them to at least kind of have that confidence booster, to say, okay, you know, we still have what it takes to pull out these crazy dominant games.
There is a flash on Reckless, but no ultimate, so does have to burn it. He's maybe overstepped it. You can see at the top of your screen, Pepe, think you're coming down, throws down a ward as Nicolex. They're going to get a knock up onto Reckless, who's getting under his own tower, and now he can start turning it around. They've gone too deep, and Nicolex dies for full time this game.
And one of the reasons we see Lethality Xayah over Crit Xayah is just that it spikes earlier. Vendetta is also departing us from Summoner's Rift. See you at the next respawn.
I'd like to write some more, but 180 carry dies trying to outplay, and the other side...
You know, I like writing as well, particularly my Book of Magi's. I'm a big fan of that.
It's not been built.
No,
not yet.
No.
But it could be. It could just be a ring. Maybe they would rather put a ring on it.
Well, I think they're pretty happy to see... Oh, okay, actually, that's a really weird interaction. Pepe actually able to flip back to, even though it's the first few frames of being caught. Actually, 1 with 3 getting caught.
He's going to take a bit of damage here. They have put the Crest down. They're trying to turn it around. As comes over the wall with the ultimate Spirit rushing away. Still got 1 more charge. Flash for the 3 talent strike. Knock up, and that gives a reset for Forsaken. They get the kill, and they'll get on out. They're just too far ahead at this point.
Too far ahead, and it is, again, hard ass to come back even before this for Phantasma. It's just getting worse for them at this point. Now the question is, how cleanly can Karmine Corp close? Because it is 14 minutes now. Plates have gone down. You're going to have a lot of ability now for Karmine Corp to... Or rather, like, you have a lot of ability to fight, but Karmine Corp are buying the book.
They bought the book, and Nightmare is very smug right now.
They did it. Okay, library pass has been granted to Taken, but and this is actually kind of filling into the point which I half made before in terms of, look, it's 14 minutes. Plates are down. You don't have another Herald at this point, or you can start fighting for that in a minute, but there's no Baron. You're not able to, like, cleanly close the game around a Soul or a Baron, which is what the meta has come to at some point. So you're gonna have to find a way to snowball in another direction. Having stuff like this extra bump in power with the extra Mythic stat coming in from a very cheap legendary item from Mythic can help towards that.
Herald number 2 is spawned, and Team Phantasma are trying to surmount a mountain taller than Mount Everest right now, because it's 11,000 gold they're behind. Since 14 minutes into the game, they're going to lose a second Herald, and I am hoping they brought oxygen tanks and climbing equipment, because they have got a sheer cliff face of a game of a gold lead to try and surmount right now.
I'm hoping they brought a diamond worth 300 gold and a 3rd level spell slot, because it feels like
to resurrect. Yeah. Oh no, that's horrifying to look at.
Revivify themselves in this game, and even if it were a diamond worth that amount, it wouldn't even get close to the level deficit.
It's
in this
literally
game.
like
There's
double
another
the
Herald coming in through the mid lane. This is again one of the power plays they can look for. They have ultimates up. You are really looking to do whatever you can here as Phantasma to catch this finally grouped team of Karmine Corp, but it is so hard to do so. Vendetta is on a 3rd HP.
I mean, Team Phantasma living up to their namesake, it feels right now, because they're feeling ephemeral, like they've got no grasp at all. Anything they can do is Bako about to get Death Charge, will try and time this one out. Flash has to be popped as well. They'll lose a tier 2 here, and this is a statement from Karmine Corp. Okay,
and this is what I wanted to see from Karmine Corp. Yes, you're ahead. How do you close out efficiently? What are the mechanisms you're using? And they're finding so much damage, even on these inhibitor turrets. It's 16 minutes in.
It's 16 minutes in, and Karmine Corp are angry. They lost yesterday to X7, and it was unceremonious. Well, they've decided to show people how it's done. I have not seen a domination this large in a very long time. Nicolex run off from his inhibitor turret. It's not even 17 minutes into the game. Over the wall comes Saken. They're getting it onto Vendetta, who at least has Severum and Crescendo, but taking so much damage in turn. Will use the Moonlight Vigil and Severum to heal back up at least somewhat, but they'll lose the inhibitor.
Losing the inhibitor, they probably lose the second one. I mean, at this point, you're thinking, okay, at least the ultimates are down. I don't know if they're going to end without all of their ults, but it's about as good as you can get here from Karmine Corp, because the SS Team Phantasma, this ship is it's sinking. It's at the point where
it's cracked in half. It's not sinking. Like, this is Titanic mode.
You've got a violin playing on the bow. That's everyone recalling.
This could be at the moment. The moment. There's a there we go. And it matters not at all. Blink and you miss it. The Cataclysm is just a shooting gallery for Nicolex and Pepe to die.
It means absolutely nothing.
They can end. There's 2 members dead. They can just keep going.
It's one man. It's a dream. It's a cataclysm, and it means absolutely nothing. And again, Nicolex has tried to dive so often as the backline, but yeah, you can see the problem when the weight of the gold is
crushing,
quite crushing at this point.
The dragon has awoken. It turns out they were here for a layer of gold, courtesy of Team Phantasma being shaken down in this game. It looks beautiful. If you're not 11, 12,000 gold behind.
This is the, you're not trapped in here with me. I'm trapped in, no, I'm trapped in here with you. I'm very much trapped in here with you. Please stop. And this is the point, again, where that's your 5-man, just kind of like, we're going to point a target on our backs and see what happens. But there wasn't a Malphite there. There was no Moonlight Vigil over the top of it. It was very far from maybe being the perfect scenario.
Well, they've been building a giant blue wall in this game, and I can imagine what various Twitch chats are looking like right now. Hugely dominant game from Karmine Corp. Hugely impressive stuff, and what a recovery from yesterday.
I mean, it feels like in this game, Phantasma are less of the wall, more of the colossal titan. And kicking through the gatehouse, the Phantasma's bot inhibitor, the last remaining one. 113 has picked up an elixir, 2 items on top of it. Karmine Corp ready to stomp through the base.
No more mistakes. It's a decent engagement. It only really lands onto one. They get to the backside. Rekkles pulls the feather straight back through. It's 2 dead already. Pepe about to fall as well, but he manages to get back. At least only the Clover fall. Still a double for Rekkles. In comes the Death Charge on the Vayne. Detta, the charm goes wide, but that'll be a thumbs up. And a dead Aphelios. Another team wide. 90 minutes on the clock. And it will be a sub 20-minute victory for Karmine Corp. The defending champions wake up on Raw.
Every championship we have of this, every tournament, there's always a couple of games which get a little stompy. Won't always happen in the reverse matchup at Karmine Corp. Being the first team to really stomp to this degree. And this is after them coming off of a stomp of their own on the other side. This is, again, a good feel-good moment for the Karmine Corp fans and the players to walk away from this and start to regain some momentum.
Absolutely, and of course they had a fantastic playing stage, came through looking pretty strong in that one as well. Maybe some early game worries aside, but this game, after getting dismantled in the early game, they put on a clinic here. There seemed to be nothing they could do wrong.
And this really did start from that topside pressure too. I look at what happened there and you think, okay, well, Malphite really starts losing value if you can't get them any resources. And they did that perfectly to deny Bako getting any gold on the board.
Well, after that domination there from Karmine Corp, we are going to have to cut to a quick break. And when we come back, we've got our third final match for us two of the day. Atletico from Italy versus Bisons from Spain. Go absolutely nowhere. You want to watch this one. See you.